Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And the title of today's episode comes from a conversation I was having with a coach that I was working with, and I was supervising his work, and we got into a conversation about what is it that I am listening for when I'm with a client. And I just liked the way my answer came out. Because what I said was, I'm listening for small fires and loose threads. And in order to make sense of that and to see why that might actually be helpful for you, I want to talk a little bit about sort of big picture, how I look at the game of life. And it seems to me that there are two parts to the game of life. And the first part, and maybe they aren't in this order, but the first part I think of as the great undoing. And the great undoing is what meditation is often talked about in the East as. It is the undoing of all the conditioning that we begin to take on from birth, and in some traditions from many lifetimes ago's births. And it is an unraveling of who we think we are, leading ultimately to a revelation of who we really are at core. Now, the great unfolding is the other part of the game of life, and that is the game part. That is the mystery. That is how things unfold in the world of form. So if you are goal-driven, in a way, you're interested in the great unfolding. If you are more sort of spiritually based, you're probably more interested in the great undoing. But for me, the great unfolding and the great undoing are two sides of a coin. You can't have one without the other. And so how that connects up to small fires and loose threads is when I am speaking with a client, when somebody phones me on a radio show or asks a question on a webinar, one of the things I'm listening for are the loose threads in what they're saying, the things that don't quite make sense, the things that are out of line with truth as I understand it, with the way things work. The things that sound off, the things that make you kind of do the Scooby-Doo sound and go, oh? like whoa. And I call them loose threads because I like to think of them as like loose threads dangling off somebody's sweater or some other piece of clothing. And if you tug on it, sometimes it just comes off. Sometimes if you pull on a loose thread, it just tugs the sweater. But sometimes if you tug on a loose thread, like pulling the right block in a game of Jenga, the sweater starts to unravel. And in this case, the sweater is the compilation of conditioned thinking. It's the BS of the belief system. It's the make-believe that has been made believe for so long that it just seems real. But when you start tugging on the threads, sometimes reality starts unraveling and you find out it wasn't as real as you thought it was. And thus the great undoing continues. Now, the small fires part of the equation is when I hear somebody and they've caught the spark. The light comes on. You can see that they've got an idea. There's something that they're excited about. They've caught a sniff of. There's a possibility in the air. Then the best thing I know to do, in the same way as the best thing to do with a loose thread is tug on it, the best thing I know to do with a small fire is pour gasoline on it. And the equivalent of pouring gasoline on a small fire or starter fluid on a barbecue is time and attention. If you've got an idea for your life, if you've got an idea about a possibility in your world. Giving it time and attention will probably do more for that idea than any strategy for implementation and action that you've collected or come across in your life. Because what comes of time and attention and a small fire is inspiration, is fresh ideas, is new possibilities. And anyone who is engaged in an act of creation, whether it's creating a piece of music or a piece of art or a sales letter or a new invention, knows the experience of how from a tiny little beginning, great things can evolve, can unfold. And then you can also learn to listen to yourself in this way and not just notice the sparks and give them more time and attention, pour gasoline on the small fires. You can begin to tug away at your own loose threads. Because if you listen to yourself think, if you think out loud or if you think in your head but you pay attention, there will be times where you'll hear that voice inside your head and you'll go, hmm? And if you keep tugging away at it, just gently, because if the thread's really loose, it will unravel, you'll be surprised at how things start to fall away and what gets revealed in the process. Have fun, learn heaps, happy exploring, and I'll talk with you soon.